7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
Hey guys, welcome to another Easy Does It show. In this show, if you don't know, what we do is we look at staple concentrates, we look at its applications, maybe simple recipes we know about, and then also look at potential subs for this concentrate. So the team has decided to talk about a coolant this week. So, and when it comes to staple concentrates to have in your stash, WS23 was the one that came to us first. So this is the one we want to discuss, right? If I think about WS23, and I'll kick this off. If I think about WS23, I mean, back in the day when we were looking at coolants, we were looking, the choices were menthol, there were mints, and there was Coolada, right? And I tried Coolada, but of course there's a funny cardboard taste in Coolada. And, it changes profiles too much. Menthol does the same thing. As soon as you start upping the menthol too much, that menthol flavor, it starts, invading your recipe. And that kind of just set me off in a different direction. Until WS23 came along. So I'm sure it was always there. It just wasn't that popular in the DIY scene or used by us, that much. So when WS23 came along, and me being interested to mix up things like sodas, because sodas is my thing, and, popsicles, that kind of thing, it really spoke volumes to me, and I picked it up. BLCK has got black ice. For people that know that is WS23, go and check it out. It's called black ice. It's a 20% dilution. I've seen the dilutions with WS23 anywhere from 10, 20 to 30%. So, that's something that you need to look out for. Of course, if you're working with the 30% dilution, you have to add much less to your mix to get a cooling effect, and it's much harder to work with. If you work with something like a 10% dilution, you can add a lot more to a mix and fine tune it a lot closer to what you're looking for from a cooling perspective. But it looks like 20% is what everybody is, shilling now from a supplier perspective. And I'm seeing on ELR that specific WS23, concentrate that's marked out there at 20% dilution, is picking up. That's the other thing here. We normally talk about, we look at how many recipes uses it, but it's difficult with WS23 because if you go on ELR, because you can create your own flavor there, there's black ice, there's WS23, 10%, 20%, and 30%. So trying to compare it from a total use and recipes perspective with things like, Polar Blast and Coolada is complicated because there's just so many things that have been added, right? And everybody's got a coolant, like Raw, like I think Rika's also got one. So there's a lot of coolants out there, but, WS23 is where is at for me. If you go and watch the Noted show as well, they talk about menthols and coolants and mints all in one show. But, this one sticks out for me as the popular one. Now, Deetz, you also use this one quite a bit. So I'll let you talk about how you applied. And then, for the things that you haven't spoke about, I'll just add on to that.
Right, so I definitely use it a lot because I like the coolness it adds. I started with Coolada, and the first bottle of juice I made with the Coolada, I ate it. I love the coolness, the mental feel it gave, but the flavor was just something I could not get used to. So I was looking for something else. I found Polar Blast, and I also enjoyed that. It had a bit of a, I wouldn't say a bubblegum, but almost like a blue mentally type of flavor going. Very subtle flavor, but still had a flavor, a specific flavor. I also found that Polar Blast with fruits like cranberry, specifically cranberry. Now, you've heard of some additives bending flavors, making it softer or changing the profile. Now, Polar Blast for me, specifically with cranberry, bends the flavor towards a overripe, almost rotten type of, or fermented type of flavor. And I found that with fruits that are very sharp, like cranberry, or has a very distinct specific flavor, something like pomegranate, that would also get the same effect with Polar Blast. So I kept on looking for something else, and someone mentioned the WS23, also 20% dilution, and I've stuck with that. I have used menthol in between. I've also made my own menthol from menthol crystals that you buy from pharmacy. You dilute it up into your PG and use it the same way. I like what menthol adds, but unfortunately with any menthol and also in any percentage, the first puff is great, the second also great, but from about the third, the menthol starts going bitter. A very, to me, a metallic bitter type of change to the flavor. So it's not something I would put in a juice that I would chain vape. The only time I would put in a menthol is if it's really highly rated by a well-known mixer, and then it would still need to be confirmed by a lot of comments before I would mix in the menthol. So I'm very happy with the WS23. It's very versatile. I generally use it from about 0.25. I would say my average is 0.5% to 1%, depending on the profile. If it's a drink or something that needs to be cooled, then at about 1% or just under that. If it's something that I just want, maybe like we've mentioned in previous shows where the fruit comes off as a warm fruit and it's not supposed to. If I just want to bring that up a little bit, then I work between 0.25 0.25 to 0.4, around about there, just to bring that feeling of a cooler fruit to the front. It's an awesome concentrate, definitely staple part of my things. I've even used it and in some recipes, I wouldn't really call them dessert recipes, more milk recipes, specifically the mother of dragon's milk. I've added it in there at a low percentage to see if it will make it almost like a yogurt type of vibe, because I got a very sherbety vibe from the dragon fruit. So I wanted to see if I can twist it with a low percentage WS. So without tasting it, it also works with creams quite well, and that's something I didn't expect. I only expected menthol or mints like spearmint or peppermint or something like that to work with a dessert. But again, the versatility of it it's very useful. I like it.
Rich,
great content.
How do you use it?
I don't really.
It doesn't mix fruits, remember?
Sweetener and coolant, to me, are two things that I will only use if I'm mixing a recipe that requires it. For my own stuff, I never add coolant because I'm not really into beverages, and I'm quite happy vaping a warm ice cream or a warm milkshake. The only thing I might put it in is an actual soda, like a Coke. A Coke mix, I might put it in, because warm Coke is the work of the devil. There's nothing worse than that. So I might put it in that. But generally, other than that, if a recipe calls for it, like Das Cole's fantastic that we reviewed, that calls for it. So I put it in there. But for my own stuff, I wouldn't use it. Where I would consider using it, and where I've only just started messing around, is the application that Deetz says, where you're not going for an actual chilled vape. What you're using it for is just to take a little bit of the warmth, the unintended warmth, out of flavors that register that way. So you just spark the flavor up just a little bit with a touch of WS23, literally just a couple of drops in a mix. But it doesn't leave a taste. It just takes a little bit of that warmth out of the fruit. And I think this is the reason why I don't like WS23. Where I've used it for cooling. It's almost like planar cooling for me. It's cooling on a certain plane, but it's not on the same plane as the concentrates, if you know what I mean. It's like the cooling is separated from the actual flavor, and that is always, whether with Colada, with WS23, I found the same thing all the time. It's like a very artificial type of cooling almost, and that the cooling is, it's like taking a warm drink and then sucking on like ice cold oxygen pipe to sort of count. The two don't mesh together for me, and that's, I think, the reason why I tend to avoid it. But of those I've tried, WS23 definitely, for its lack of discernible flavor that it adds, and for its potency, obviously a staple to have if you integrate it.
It's definitely great. The fact that it doesn't add any flavor or bend any flavors or actually alters any flavors. That's what I like a lot. And another thing I didn't mention is what I'd also like is it works for me as one single concentrate. It can work from something as warming up a fruit that's supposed to be, all the way to having a slush puppy ice blast down your throat, depending on your percentages. Whatever you want, you can get from 1%, one concentrate. That's also something that's why it's useful to me.
Yeah, so I'm a fanboy. I'm a big time fanboy. Especially, I said last summer, I said, listen here, this is just a summer thing. Winter came, and I was like, oh, okay, well, whatever. And now I'm still vaping it. So it's been a full year of coolants for me. So I don't think that's going away. I think that's it. You get used to it, right? So there's WS5 as well, which is even more potent than WS23. Just as a piece of information, for you guys. But with WS23, there's a couple of ways that I use it. We all fantasize about adding fizziness to a soda, adding some effervescent to a Coca-Cola, or a soda pop drink, and it's a fantasy. We can try and imitate it as much as we possibly can, and the things that are going to help us with that imitation is citrusy things like lemon, lime, champagne, and then also WS23. That in conjunction with something citrusy, gives you like a effervescent kind of feel. As far as we can get. I'm still trying to play around with fizzy sherbet with WS23 to see how much of a effervescent I can get out of that, right? That was actually a hint that came from one of Concrete's Vape Train Notes shows. But there's a couple of other things I also use it for, to effervescent just being the one. The other thing is if you want to separate a cream from a fruit, so if you don't actually want a cream and a fruit to blend, if that's what you want to do, so you want to then create more layering in a recipe, a little bit of WS23 actually cuts, it gives that imitation that the two things are not blended. It's almost like you've got a fruit, and an ice cream in a bowl, like a mango and ice cream in a bowl, and they're separate. So if you use, and I've tried that by mixing up, mango and an ice cream together, tasting that recipe, then spinning up with a little bit of WS23, then that cream, after you put in the WS23, it feels like the cream has pulled away. That could only be like a, how can I say, like a distraction, but you can use that distraction to create the imitation that there is separation between the two things, right? So, I mean, I don't get that technical really, but there's a possibility there that you can do that, right? And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Also gives a nice little throat hit. So if you're into that cooling, WS23, just to kind of echo what Deetz was saying about the percentages to use it at, background background coolness, a 20% dilution at about 0.25 to 0.3%. If you're looking for a little bit more coolness, like a soda, so you want an ice cold soda, you can actually push it as far, a 20% dilution for me, up to about 1.5%. You know what I mean? With a 20% dilution. Anything at about 2% with a 20% dilution, I actually start tasting the coolant. Then it starts featuring as a profile in the mix. And yes, WS23 does have a taste to it. You just have to use enough of it to start tasting it, and you get it when you start pushing it. So 2% is as far as I would go with the 20% dilution before it really starts featuring as the main profile in the mix. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Another thing, for all the coolant guys out there, and this is a challenge, please do this. Go home, take the coolest WS23 mix that you have, give it about 6 or 7 toots so that your throat really cools down, and then have a glass of ice cold water right next to you and just chase it with that cold glass of water. And then you guys can comment and let us know what that feels like. I'm not going to give out any information about what that is, but I do recommend that you guys go and check that out. It's definitely something to go and see. So guys, is there anything else that we wanted to add? I think it's difficult to talk about recipes, in this show, because it's used in everything that requires a coolant, so Fantastic is one recipe that it was used really well in, like a soda. So I'll add a couple of my soda recipes in the links below. I'll also add the Dascol Fantastic link below. Any other recipes where you've used coolant where it was pretty good?
Yeah, all mine.
I'll find the links for those and link them below.
Wait, I'm still working on my descriptions. I'll let you know when I'm done, just for Richard's sake.
All right. So that pretty much wraps up the show, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and please leave any comments below, any questions that you have, any recipe recommendation. I saw in the last show we had Dave actually popping in a couple of recipe comments into the comment section of this video. Please feel free to do that. I think I want to urge you guys to do that, so that the recipes that you guys put in there is on par with what the discussion is of the show. Cool.
Sure.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Cool.